Yes, Diana.
Okay, thank you. A very warm welcome to the episode 11 of the AWS Cloud Club St. Joseph Group of Institutions workshop. We are thrilled to have you all here as we dive into the world of PowerShell automation and its incredible capabilities for managing AWS environments. Today, we have the privilege of learning from Mr. Naveen Kumar, a senior DevOps engineer and the MongoDB user group leader. With years of experience in automation and cloud technologies, Mr. Naveen has been a key figure in the DevOps community, and we are excited to hear his insights and practical knowledge on how PowerShell can transform our cloud workflows. I encourage you all to actively participate, ask questions, and make the most out of this session. Without further ado, let's get started.
Yeah, thanks, Diana. So let's get started. Maybe I'll quickly share my screen. Okay, let me know if you all can hear me and can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, so is the font in my screen readable? Like, can you, or should I increase it further?
It's good, sir. It's good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's get started. So I'll do a quick introduction for people who have joined this session for the very first time, right? So I thought of doing the introduction in a different way to avoid PowerPoint, and I thought of doing it via PowerShell. So my name is Naveen. So like I mean, I do like database stuff a lot. So I'm primarily a database administrator, and I do handle different types of databases like SQL Server, MongoDB, Postgres across multiple clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Okay, and I mostly handle all the automation tasks with PowerShell and other programming languages. So that's a short intro about me. Now let's look at the agenda. Okay. Uh, some of the things we have already covered in this agenda in our part one. Like I guess we have talked up to this point, but can someone confirm me? Like, what was the last item which we discussed in part one? If at all, anyone would like to say, like, what was the last thing we saw?
Starting variables.
Okay,
Starting variables.
we have seen variables, or we have to start with variables.
I think we have to start with variables.
Okay, okay, fine. So let's get started. I'll do a quick recap, okay, like what we have covered so far. Let me go back to the screen. I'll open another window. So PowerShell is a scripting language using which you could automate things, okay? So, okay, before even I do that, right? So any questions which you have from the previous session? Maybe so that I can address that and then we can continue with the today's topics. Any questions which you couldn't ask last time or which you got after looking into the recordings or anything which you want me to repeat in specific, you can tell me. Okay, if nothing, I feel, yeah, I'll take it as a positive response. I guess we are good. Okay, I'll quickly summarize. Okay, PowerShell is a scripting language, and here we call things as a commandlets, and the commandlets will be like a verb and a noun format. Get help is one of the important commandlet using which you could explore what all things can be done. For example, you can search for other commandlets or search with the keywords and all like this, and get the list of helps and all. Okay, and apart from that, we saw something like get service. Let's say if I'm taking this and if I want to check what all things I can do with get service, I can do something like get service and a pipeline and get member. This will show me what are the properties which are available, which means what all data I can retrieve and what all methods are available, what all things I can do with this commandlet. I can start, stop, pause a service, all these things we can do. So get member is going to help in that. Then we saw like how you could retrieve data using select object. Like you can get the required data by using select hyphen object. After that, then we saw like how you could filter the output using where object. Like you can say something like dollar underscore dot and give the column name, and I can say equal give an operator. And let's say if I want to search for what all services are going to start with manual, I can do a where condition and filter accordingly. Then additionally, then what we saw is like how you could sort um, sort the data. Let me quickly show that. Sort object, and then you can say on based on what property value you want to sort. Like that I can sort, and then I can fetch the data. For example, this will return name, and I can select the first 10, something like this. So this is something we are using, sorting the data based on CPU. Maybe if I include CPU, you get a sorted data. If you want sorting in the other way, you can do something like descending. Ascending is a default sorting order, and we can do a sorting in other way. Okay, this is on the high level stuff which we have covered in the part 1. Additionally, we also explored how you could make use of help to understand different types of parameters like positional, optional parameters, mandatory parameters, and all we explored. Now let's move on. Okay, to explain variables, I'm going to use something called ISC. Okay, ISC is a integrated scripting environment. It's like an IDE for PowerShell. Okay, you could use this, or you can also use your Visual Studio code, VS Code. I'll also show some demo on that as well. But this is a native ISC which is coming by default with PowerShell. Now, okay, maybe we'll use this one only. Okay, what we will do. So assigning variables in PowerShell is very straightforward. Like you don't have to worry much. Let's say if I want to assign some value to $a. In this case, $a is a variable, and I'm assigning a value called 10. So now if I want to print, I can do $a, or I can say write host $a. Okay. So like this is a very straightforward thing. If you want to assign a string, okay, I can say something like this. Within quotes, if I give, that is going to be treated as a string. So how you can check what variable is, what type of data type is assigned is, I can pass on this variable with another function called getType, which is going to tell me what data type I am using. For example, if I do the same for $a, it says int. Okay, these are the common data types which you would use. I mean int and string, but you do have other things. Like let's say if you want to pass something like this, which has a decimal number. So this will be like a float or double. Okay, so like this you can directly define. But you might be having a use case. Let's say you want to enforce something. Okay, I want to say only a integer should be accepted. So in that case, what you will do is you will define the data type at the beginning. So in this case, I'm saying I need only integer data type to be given here. Okay, in this case, if I'm giving something like a string, it's going to throw an error. Okay, now like how on what cases this will be helpful is, let's say you are writing a program where you're going to collect some data details from a end user. Okay, so let's say I'm storing having a variable called name. Okay, and I want to hold only string data type. So what I will do is, there is something called read host. I don't know if this was covered, but read host is something which will allow users to take input at the runtime. Maybe when I'll show you, I'll just say enter your name. Okay, and see what happens. You will get a prompt. Okay, where user can type their name here. Now, if I check what is there in my variable, I'll get something like this. Now, for this, is a string. Okay, this can be treated, if I give 10 also, if I put within a quotes, that will be treated as a string. For example, if I check the data type, this is a string. But let's say we change this to int, and you want the user to type something like enter your ID. Okay, in this case I want only integer numbers to be here. I don't want someone to write any string. I want my script to fail there itself. This is like, you could this is how you could enforce a data type in your code. Okay, so if you want any specific variable to have a specific data type, you can do something like this. Now let's say you have captured this data. I have entered my ID, or I'll just change the variable as well so that it will be more sensible. I'll just say ID. Okay, now let's look at the get type. This should show as int. Okay, now what you can do is, this can be converted. Let's say if you want to convert this integer to a string, for example. Okay, you can also do that with PowerShell. You can convert this data type to a maybe string. Let's say if I want to convert it as a string, right? Now what we have done is, we have taken this value, this was an integer. Now I have taken this and as and converting as a string. Now let's see what is the data type we have for B. Okay, so I'm going to uh, do a get type, and you can see, right, it is a string. So again, all these things depending on your use case. Let's say if you want to convert internally after taking the input, you could do very well like this. You can have a data conversion also being done. Okay, so now let's move on. So this is about the basic data type. Then you have something called arrays. Okay, where you can store more than one value. For example, again, let's do $a. I can store something like this, where I can store more than one value. So how do I access it? Like if I do $a, I'm going to get all the data. Okay, so if I want to pick any specific value, okay, like in any programming languages, like we here also, you have something called indexes. Okay, for example, this is the variable we have defined, right? If I type $a, this will print all the data. Okay, if you want to access data of one, okay, by default we'll have this indexing concepts and all, right? So what will happen is, let me just split this, and like you have something like, wait, this formatting. Okay, so we'll have indexes. Okay, starting with, it will start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It keeps on going. Now if I want to access value 10, what I will do is, I'll say $a of 0. If I want to access second value, I'll say $a of 1. So like that, this index, using this index value, I can access the respective values which is stored in a given variable. Again, if I want to add some data, okay, let's say right now, if I do $a up to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I'm getting. Now, if I want to add some data, what I will do is, I'll say something like this. Now if I do, you see we have added a value to this array. Okay, we have added one more value, but you cannot remove a value, but addition is something which is possible. If you want to remove, right, we have something called assigning a null value. Okay, you can assign a null value and replace it. So something like that you can do. Like I'll just show you one example. Let's say I want to replace 20, for example, right? What I can do is, I'll say $b, and 20 is of index 1. Okay, and I'll say like this, equal to dollar null. Okay, if I do, okay, wait, I'm missing something. Let me see. Unable to index the object system string. Wait. Ideally, this should take. Okay. maybe we'll see at the end. Okay, but you can set a value to null. Okay, let's not spend time. I just want to tell you, you cannot remove a value, but you can just set that to null. Okay, that is one thing. This is on the array part. And it's not always like you are going to hold only integers. Okay, I can also have a string in this, and I can have something like this. It's not like mandatory I should have same data type. By default, I can have any type of data. Again, if you want to enforce a data type, right, what you have to do is you have to define a uh, data type here. Let's say in this case I want to hold only integers. So like this I can set. It will not allow me to add a string or something if I do this enforcement. So in my previous example I would have just shown how to enforce a data type for a variable. But if you want something to do for an array, you have to have this additional square bracket which indicates this variable is going to have more than one value. It's an array of data. Okay, that's when you do something like this. Okay, this is on the array part. And you also have boolean data type. Let's say for true or false and all, right, you have something called true. If I do, like, let's say if I print $a, it's going to say true or false. Again, you will use all these things in coding. Okay, today we'll see more on the coding side as well. Like, I'll show you some sample programs. We'll also write some custom functions. In those cases you will use this array concepts and all when we write loops and other things. Okay, we'll see some real time use cases and all today. But this is something which is available. Okay, array is something which we have in PowerShell. And at last we have something called hash tables. Okay, hash table is nothing but a key and a value. Let's say I'm defining a variable. Again, this variable can be of anything. Whatever you want to say, you can define. Okay, I'm saying var1. So for hash table, what we'll do is you will define, I'll show you different ways. So here I'm just declaring an empty variable. Okay, if I do var1, nothing is there. Now we will add something. Let's say I want to add my name. For example, this is like a key and value. Okay, you can store more than one value. I'll say city as Chennai. Like this I can have multiple values stored. And then if I want to say role as DevOps engineer. Okay, I gave something wrong. Okay, now if I type var1, you see this data. This is how your data is going to be stored. And if I want to access any of the data, what I will do is I'll do something like this. I mean, calling the variable dot name, which is going to tell this is the key and this is my value. One thing, if you would have observed, first I have assigned name, then city, then role. But if you look at this output, it's not in the same order. Okay, by default hash table will not follow order. So if you want to enforce an order, what you can do is I'll pick a new variable, for example. Okay, and in this case I'm going to show you how you can do something. Maybe first I'll show you how you can assign these values. Instead of like I wrote multiple lines, right, you can do this in a single line itself. So here what I will do is I can say name. I can put like this, then put a colon, semicolon, and then I'll say city as Chennai, and then I can also say role as DevOps. If I do like this, okay, wait, again I did something wrong. Like this also I can assign. Now if I again print this data, right, let's say this will not be in an ordered way. Let's see how you can make this in an ordered output. What I will do, I'll just to show you, I'll pick a different one. So here you can say ordered. Okay, now let's see what is the how the data looks like. You see, right, name, city, role. Now if I add this will enforce that ordering of this values in a hash table. Okay. Any questions on this before I move on to the next topic? Sorry, I missed it. Okay, I guess all good. Okay, now let's move on. So one thing which I showed you here is read host. This is a commandlet where you can take the input from the user. Okay, like I showed you, right? Enter your name. If I give, it will give you a prompt like this, and I can put my name. Again, this can be assigned to a value, or we can, like, once you know looping and all, we'll see how you can pass on these values in a loop and do some operation. Okay, read host is used for that. Similarly, in your code, if you want to write some output to the console, okay, this is a test message. Now what will happen is this kind of message, let's say you want to, in your code you want to print progress, or you want to print some message after doing some steps. That's when you use something called write host. Okay, and you also have something called write warnings. If you want to write a warning message, something like this you can do, so it will come as a warning message. Write host is a message which you print, but if you want to print a warning, something like this, you can also use write warning. So I mean, you might be wondering where you will be using this. Once we talk about some loops and functions, there I will show you actually how you can make use of these command loops. Okay, we also have something called verbose. Okay, so I can say this is a verbose message, and now I just printed like this, right? What I can do is I'll do something. Okay, verbose message is something which you will use for debugging. Okay, but let's say you have a bunch of code, you are assigning some variables, and the code for some reason is breaking. Okay, but you want to have some sort of verbose messages which will be used only for debugging purpose. If you want to debug at certain place what was the value of a given variable, at that time you can have this sort of verbose message within your code, and when you call the entire code you can see those verbose messages in the console. Again, when we talk about functions, you will get a better idea of what this is. But for now, just remember we have different types of write options. These are the different options using which you could write a message to the console. Along with this, you also have, like, you could also say, give a color. Okay, I can say if I want this to be in green, I can customize this color. Okay, if you remember this introduction which I wrote, okay, all these are like just a string, and if you see, I have used those colors only to make it more, I mean, attractive. This looks better, right? So like this, you can do all sort of customization. Okay, these are the different write options which we have in PowerShell. Now, moving on, now we are going to start looping concept. Okay, for this, I will need IDE so that I can explain things in a better way. Okay, this is an IDE. So here, whatever you have seen in this console, it's all like one line code, right? Since we are going to go to next level, I'm using this IDE so that we'll write multiple lines of code. So when we talk about loops, okay, again, like hash indicates these are like commented lines in PowerShell. Okay, there are different types of loops in PowerShell. We have a for loop, then we have for each loop, then there is something called while loop, and these are the common things. Again, you also have something called switch. Okay, uh, I'll show you a demo on all these things. So for each is something which we'll use a lot, and for loop. Other things are like, I mean, again, it all depends on the scenario, but most of the automation scenarios, you will use these two and switch also. Okay, let's see a simple syntax how it looks like. For loop will be something like this. Okay, what I will do is I'll just put, so we'll define for, then we will initialize a variable. I'll just say init. Just for example, this is not the actual syntax, but I just want you to understand how the syntax is going to look like. So first we'll initialize, then we will set a condition. Maybe I'll do, this is how the actual thing will look like. We'll do a condition, then it will be increment or decrement. Depending on that condition, then it will enter the loop and it will do something. Okay. This is the high level code. Now I'll show you the actual syntax, how it looks like. I'll just comment this. This is how you can do a multi-line commenting. Okay. Do bracket hash and then close it if you want to comment multiple lines. So taking the above example, I'm just going to do something like this. I'll have this written already. Now we'll take a variable called $a. So I'm initializing $a with a value 0. Okay. And let's say I want to run this value till a reaches value of 10. And after every iteration, I want to increment this value by 1. Okay. Then what I'm doing, this is something, this is the place where you write the code. For now, I'm just printing the value of a. I'll just do $a. Let's run this and okay, wait, there is a mistake. Cannot convert system object this to type int 32. Okay, we'll see what is the mistake we have done. Okay, let's print as a string. Okay, wait, I have made a mistake here. Okay, I think I gave a comma, it should be a semicolon. So right now you see, right, a was initialized with 0 and it first entered, so this condition was met. 0 is less than 10, and this will get called once the first loop is done. So right now it printed 0, then a got incremented by 1, and then 1 is less than 10, like that it went through 9 because we have given the condition is less than 10. Okay, that is what has happened here. Similarly, this is a very basic example. Let's say if you want to change the condition, you can do something like this as well. Here you have two options. If I want to execute the selected portion, I will use this. If I want to execute whatever is there in this window, I'll do this. Since I have commented all those things, now you see this is also coming. Again, this is just for your information. Okay, this is a simple example of for loop. Okay, now let's try to do something meaningful. Okay, with the for loop example, what we will do is we'll call a variable called $a, and I'm going to write a small program. So you would have seen get hyphen service, right? Get hyphen service. Let's say if I do something like this, it's giving this data. Okay. Now this data, whatever I'm printing, right? I want this to be customized. Okay. I'm going to take these two things as a user input, and I want to print only name and status. Okay. That's what we are going to write with a simple for loop condition. Okay. What we will do is we'll say enter the service names. Okay, I'll just say this is the input we are taking from the user. Then what I'm doing is I'm passing on that input. Okay, let's say with, or I'm not going to put more message, but let's say we are going to enter with comma separated. Okay, what we are going to then do is if a variable. Okay, let me go here. Okay, $b. Let's say we have something like this ABC and XYZ. For example, I have, okay, I cannot hold ABC is this. Okay, it's taking as string. Let's enforce this. Okay, now if I print $p, I have like this, right? But if I do same with read host, okay, what I will do is I'll say read host enter the service name. Now I'll say VSS WinRM. Now let's try to print B. You see, it is coming like this in a single line, not like each value in a separate line. So what we can do is we have something called, let's say, for example, I want to split this. Okay, there is a function called split. Okay, for some reason this tab completion is not working. Let's type it manually. I'll see if this works. Okay. So what I did is, maybe let me go back. So I know my data is something like this in a single line. I want to split each value, which is I'll be separating with comma. Okay, that's what we have done by calling this function split. Okay, now you see this is printing as a each as a separate value. Okay, when how this will be useful is when we do the looping, right? So it's going to loop through these names at once. If I'm having this like this, right, each row is a separate value, right? It will treat this as a single value, which we want to break it. So for that, I'm using a split function. Okay. Now we are going to do something similar here and store that value. So what I will do is $a, and I'll say split, and let's say I am expecting user to enter something in comma separated. That's what we are going to do, and we're splitting it. Okay, that value will be stored in this $b. Now comes our for loop. Okay, we'll again do the same thing. So our intention is to get the service status. Okay, we are going to get the input from the user, and the name is something which is going to come via this parameter value which we have defined. First, let's define the for condition. Okay, we'll say $i is equal to 0. Again, this is a different variable. So there are multiple different variables here. So you can just pay close attention so that you will get it. A is something which will hold the list of service. B is something which is will split the data. Now I'm having a different variable called I, which is initialized with 0. And what I'm going to do is I will say $i is less than, and I want to dynamically define. Okay, user can define one service or two service. So I want to dynamically define this value. So what I will do is I'll say b of count. Okay, if I do b of count, if I go here, right, for example $b of count, see what happens. Wait. Okay, here it shows 1. Ideally, it should be 2. Okay, we haven't stored this. Okay, for example, right now $b is this. Okay, now if what I will do is, I think we did the split, right? I will say $c of this. Now, if I do $c of count, it is 2. So this value, depending on how many service user enters, this will be dynamically taken. Okay, that is what we are doing in the condition here. Maybe I'll just change this, and then what we are going to do is I'm going to again do $i, and I'll increment it to 1. Okay, now this name is something which will be kept in B, right? So what I will do is we'll do $b. Okay, and in this I want to introduce an index. If you remember, we had an index. So if I do something like this, $b has two values. Okay, I'll go back to the screen. It will have two values, and here I is started with 0. So if I is 0, $b of 0 is the first service. $b of 1 is the second service. That is what we are doing here. So that every time this value gets incremented and it cannot go above the count, and I'm dynamically passing on my values which is stored from value B, variable B. Okay, and then I'm doing something like select hyphen object, and I want to print only name and status. Let's run this. And now you see, right, we are giving the service name. You see, right, it printed VSS service, WinRM service. Now, if I give like extra one more service, okay, let's pick any other service also. Let's see how the script is going to work. I want, okay, well, pick this one also in our list. Again, let's run this code. I will say NRM, VSS, and I'll pick one more as well. Okay, in this case, okay, we have entered four services. So what will happen? A will hold this data as it is. $B is going to split based on comma. Maybe here we can put a more verbose message saying service name should be entered only with comma separated values. Okay, something like that you can add so that user knows how to enter the value. Now B will hold four rows of value. Okay, then I will get initialized with 0. B of count will be 4, which means this loop will execute till I less than 4 is met. Okay, and then I gets incremented by 1. Here, $B of 0 will be this first service. Then $B of 1 will be this, like this, the loop continues. Okay, that is how this is a real-time example where we have just built a small code which is going to fetch the list of service and print the output. This is a very simple example. I picked get service because now we are very familiar with this commandlet. So this could be like in real time, you can think once we know like functions and modules, we'll do similar thing for your cloud VMs. Let's say you want to fetch or look at the status of your EC2 instances. There is a separate way to call the EC2 instance and get the list. So you can write the code for that, something like this. This is a example for loop. Okay. Any questions on this? Is it easy or did I confuse you guys? It's all silent. Okay. Yes, Abdul. Yeah. I see there are few hands raised. Yeah, I mean, Abdul, yeah, you can go ahead if you want to say something. How we put less than or greater than? Okay, I'll show you. It all, okay, you want with less than? Okay, greater than, you see, right? If I do this, you will get all the options, whatever is supported. Okay, so we should have something for greater than, right? I think it is GT. Let's see. You see, right? It is GT. It all depends on the logic how you are writing. Let's say if you are using greater than, right, you have to change the code, this logic accordingly. For this example, I choose less than, which makes more sense. But if you want something for greater than, again, you have to define on what value you're going to initialize this. So it will be like, here I'll say $B of count, I'll initialize, okay? And I'll put greater than, this will be, how it will be like, I want this script. I mean, greater than might not be a better fit for this use case. Maybe I'll think about like what could be the better real-time example which I could show. But I mean, if you want to list the list of operators, right? If you can just put hyphen and see all these things. Again, like what logic you're going to use, it all completely depends on the use case. Okay, here I built something for this scenario. Greater than is something maybe that will have a different use case, but I'll think about it. Like maybe I'll give you an example later, but for now, that's how you can use it, because there is no right and wrong, right? It all depends on what logic you're going to write the code. So that's on that. Okay, let's say if I just want to know how we put, okay, fine. What is the reason for putting dollar symbol? Okay, so I guess you are talking about these symbols, what we have used here. Is that correct? If that is the question, that's how you define a variable. Okay. So $A is a variable, $B is another variable, $I is another variable. And this is again like you're taking the count. Okay. If you're asking about this, maybe let me just take this to a notepad. Okay, wait. So let's say what happens when I execute it, right? $A, this will, let's say for example, we are typing VSS and WinRM, for example. Now, $A will hold this value, okay? Now we are converting this with a split function. As soon as I run this command, $B will hold the value something like this. Okay. Right now, if I do $B of count, this will be 2 because 1 and 2. Okay. And $B of 0 is this VSS. And similarly, $B of 1 will be winner. Now, if I take this same logic here, right? If I go to the looping part, so I'm initializing I with 0 less than B of count. B of count is what? 2. So this is how the code will look like. Now, what will happen? First, for the first condition, $I value is 0 and $B value will be VSS. Okay. I mean, $B. Okay, let me put this like this. So $B of 0, this will be VSS. Okay. And similarly, when what this will be first loop. So what happens when it reaches this? So command like this will get executed. Then the second iteration will come. So in the second iteration, I will get incremented by 1, which means I will hold the value of 1, and $B of 1 will be used, which will be winner. Okay, then a command like this gets executed. So this is the actual flow of that for loop condition. So then once this loop is done, then I value gets incremented by 1. I will go to 2. 2 is not less than 2. The loop ends there. So did that answer your question, Rhea? And yeah, you can just comment or speak if you have questions. Next one is we are making only split. Then y comma is not coming up in the output. Okay. So for what value you are splitting? Okay. So maybe I'll go back to this one. I'll say maybe string and $C. In this case, I'm doing semicolon, okay, or let's say colon, and let's say XYZ. I did something wrong. Wait, where is that? I'll maybe use the same one which we already had. Okay, it is closed. Or okay, I have it here, right? Let's see what data we had here. So whatever I use here, right? I'm splitting based on that. So it could be a semicolon as well. So what I will do, maybe I'll show you other example. env ps module path. Let's see if this works. Okay, this is a environment variable, for example. Okay, if you look at this output, okay, all these are separated with semicolons, for example. Okay, these are different environment variable path, okay, which we will have. For example, if I'm assigning this data to a variable called a, and now what I'm doing is $A dot split And here I know it is all with semicolon. I will do something like this. You see the output, right? It got splitted into um, each separate line depending on like what is the delimiter. If you have heard about term something like delimiter, based on that your values will be separated. Okay, so in this case, since we are writing our own program, I just gave comma as an example, which will be more um, which makes more sense. That's why I picked comma as an example. But in this case, if you already have a data, something like this, you could split it into separate value so that in PowerShell, each row is treated as a separate object, I mean property value. And that will be helpful for us in case of looping into using for loop. Okay, so what does, okay. The other question, what does select object does? Okay, so select object is nothing but, okay, for example, let's say get hyphen process. This gives me, let me pick something small. Okay, let's take get hyphen service and I'll put something like this. For example, this is the commandlet we have written. So select object, using select object, you can define what data you're going to capture, what property, these are something property value we say, what property value we can fetch. Let's say I don't want all the value. I can just type explicitly what property I'm going to fetch. That's where you use select object. And that is what we have done here. And also, every time I don't have to put select hyphen object, I can also say name hyphen start type also. I mean, this will also work because select hyphen object and select are alias. We have something called aliases. Okay, if I do something like this, that's how, if you remember the part one, I told you most of your Linux commands also work. For example, Linux, if I do PS, that's going to list all the process. Same thing in PowerShell, if I do PS, it will still list all the process. This is because PS is an alias of maybe what I will do is get hyphen process. You see, right? PS is equivalent to get hyphen process. You can run this commandlet and explore what are the other aliases which are available. But to answer your question, select object does that. Okay. Perfect. Let's move on. Now, for loop we have seen. So other loops are like little bit easy once you understand this concept, right? Next, we'll see for each loop. Okay. For each, again, we'll pick the same example. Maybe we'll take this example itself. Just see how this condition gets changed. Okay. Again, I'm doing the same split, but I'll remove this part, or at least this part will remove. Okay. And here what I'm going to do is I'll say for each, okay, and I'll say $I in $B. Okay. For each value in $B, go and run this command. Okay, that's all. Now let's run the same thing. It's the same thing. So what will happen up to this point? I think up to line number 2 we are clear, right? So here we are taking one value from $B and sending it to I. Then I value is passed on to the loop. Then that is one iteration. Like that, it's going to do for each value of $B and then assign it to I and enter into this loop, and it is printing. Okay, this is the example for each loop. Maybe what I will do is I will also put this in the chat so that you can copy and keep it. Though I will also like send it, put all these things in a GitHub code repo. But for now, I'm just keeping it. You can keep a note of this. Okay, or yeah, let it be like that. So this is a simple example for each loop. Okay. I know this. The reason why I spend more time is so that once you understand this, these things are going to be easy. So this is on the for each part. Okay, it's just this condition and you're going to use this. This is something which we use more in many cases for, let's say you want to do some operation in bunch of servers, right? For example, another example which I will show you is, maybe let me do this. I'll comment out this part and I'll do. Let's say I'll say server list. For example, this is a variable. Let's say I have server one, and again I have server two. Like this, I have multiple servers. Okay. Let's say these are server IPs, for example. Okay. And if I want to do some operations on all of these servers, okay, what I will do is I can write. Maybe I'll get this same code. I'll replace this B, and let's say I'm looking for some specific service, let's say VSS. Okay, I'm just picking this so that it will be easy for you to understand. I can do something like this. So what will happen is this get hyphen service supports something called computer name, which means this is going to connect to a remote machine and run this command. Okay, so this is how in real time, if you want to do something on a bunch of servers, here I did get service. This could be start service or stop service, anything you can do. Okay, this is another example. I mean, these are not valid servers, but if you're giving valid IP addresses, right? We use something called PowerShell remoting. Okay, let's assume you have, okay, in real time, I'll quickly show you how it looks. You will have something, okay, let me pick this. Let's say you call this as jump server, or they call this as bastion host, whatever it is. Okay, this would be a common server, okay, which can talk to all of your other servers. Okay, there will be multiple other servers which will be sitting. Okay, all these servers will be accessible from this bastion host. So from your bastion host, if you run a command like this by specifying the list of servers in a variable, let's assume you have the connectivity in place. From this server itself, you can hit all the servers and fetch the data. Okay, this is how your real-time scenario will be. You will be, and in real time also, right? You will not even be doing like this. Okay, we have something called get content. Okay, content. So you, let's see if I have something sample. Okay, let me see if I have something called server list. Okay, let's say I have this file. Now what I can do is I will say get content is something you'll use it to read the files. Okay, maybe let me go back. I'll copy this and put it here. I'll run this command from the PowerShell console, and I'll show you how the output looks. So it is, we are getting list. Okay, let's assume this is your server inventory where you have thousands of servers in a text file. So I will fetch this in a variable, and I can do a for each loop and do some operations. Okay, just give me 1 minute. I will be back. Meanwhile, if you have questions, just post. Give me 1 minute. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, I'm back. So, this is another example for each loop. Okay. I see there is a link. I don't know if it is authorized link, but maybe yeah, someone from the team can confirm. I don't know what is this link about. I usually don't recommend people to click link directly because there are a lot of things you could do, right? If it is a spam or something, maybe someone from the team, just you can confirm and reply. For now, I wouldn't encourage anyone to click unless someone confirms. Okay, better to avoid links without any information. Okay, so moving on, let's move on. So for each we have seen. Next is while loop. Okay, while loop is, okay, there is a message. No, I have one doubt. Does the process running on the computer or somewhere like EC2 or VMs? And second, for each is something like selecting servers based on condition to run or something on that server. Okay, so Abdul, like maybe I'll for now hold this question. Okay, maybe at the end we'll discuss more. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's continue. The next one which I want to say talk is while loop. Okay, while loop is again like, let's say again, most of the things with you will initialize something. I'll show you a basic syntax how it will look. Let's say while a is less than, you define some value, and then your statement comes here. Here what you will do is, let's say I do write host, sorry, WRITE host. Okay, I'm giving the correct value only, and I'll say $A, and here I'll be incrementing a value by 1. Okay, so I can do $A plus plus, or I can also say do something like this, which is also same. Okay, maybe I'll just comment this. Let's see what happens if we run this. Okay, there is an error. Let's see what is the error. Okay, there is a typo. Okay, my bad. Okay, this is a simple example for while loop. Okay, again, like if you when you will use it completely depends on the scenario, but I just want to give you a basic syntax. Okay, we mostly will use the for and for each loop. So let's not spend more time, but I just want you to show how it looks like, so we'll not spend more time here. Okay, let's continue now. The next one is like switch. Okay, how you can switch, use the switch. Again, in Linux also you have something called switch concept. Okay, let's say you are writing a code where there is a, let's see if I can mute. Okay, yeah, thanks, Brenda. Okay, let's say something like this. Enter your cloud provider. For example, okay, let's say you're writing a code where you are taking inputs from a user. As a first step in your code, you want to get which cloud provider user wants to pick. And here, what I can do is I'll say switch. Okay, not with a variable. I'll initialize and I'll say whatever value is picked on the cloud. Okay, accordingly, I'm going to do something here. So what I will do is, let's say if they pick Azure, okay, I will say right host, you have selected Azure. Again, this is just a simple string I have chosen, and we'll just modify this. Azure, AWS, I'll just say AWS, and here I'll say GCP, and I have selected GCP. For now, we'll just limit it with this. Okay, now let's say it's asking for a input. I'll say AWS. You see, it went to this block, and whatever you have code you have defined in this block, it will go and run. And similarly, if I do something called GCP, it goes to the GCP block and does it. So again, this is the case where if you are writing any code which is going to take input from a user, accordingly, if you want to run a next set of code, you could do. Again, within this code also, you can have another read host to fetch some data, and you can have some more conditions defined inside it. Okay, this is an example for using a switch. Okay, that's an attendance form. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. Next thing, okay. So far, we have covered most of the looping concept. Next, I'm going to introduce you to something called function. Okay, whatever you have seen till now. Let's say if I pick get service, maybe tab completion, or okay, get service or get process. All these are something which is predefined, right? So now we'll see how we can write our own function. Okay, so writing a function is pretty straightforward. So what I will do is it will be like function and you will define the name. I would say always go with a name which is like of more meaningful. So I'll say get my service, for example. Okay. And you will be defining a function and then you will say what this function is going to do. Let's say get hyphen service and I want to print only name and status. Now I execute it. This is a very basic function. So now, since I executed it, from here I can type get hyphen my service. Wait, let's see if the tab completion works. Okay, I think it didn't work. I just typed it in the interest of time. So this is a very basic syntax, right? So what benefit you get is, let's say every time I'll pick maybe a different example. Okay, let's copy this. Get my logs. So we know there is a commandlet called get hyphen event log. Or let me go here. We'll write it here. We'll write the command here. Event log is a commandlet, and this command will take log name as a parameter. And let's take application, and I want only the errors. Okay, let's say I want to pull only the errors and I want to pick only the latest 10 entries, and I want only the ID and source and message. So if I have to write something like this, right, every time I don't have to go and type the whole thing. Okay, let's say this is the command data which I want to check. The latest 10 errors which are reported in my application logs. So what I can do every time, I don't have to write this whole thing. Instead, I can put this inside a function and I can create that function, so that what I will do is I'll do get my logs. So I'm reducing my code, okay, whatever I'm writing. So whenever I need to call this, I will call my function. Okay, that is the benefit you get by writing your own function. Okay, this is a very simple example. Now let's take this to another level. Okay, next level. Maybe I'll put this again in the chat for your reference, and let's continue. Now, every time I might not be searching for application. Okay, I could also search for system logs. So let's see how you can parameterize this one. Let's say I'm saying log name, for example. Okay, now we are going to define something called param. Okay, that's how you initialize a parameter. This is a parameter section block, and I'm going to say log name is my parameter, and I'm giving an empty value. Okay, now let's run the same function and let's see. Okay, it is an empty string. Okay, by default, if log name is empty, it's not giving. Now what I will do is I'll hit a tab. Now you see it is the PowerShell is automatically, or let me just go up so that you can see better. If I do a hyphen, it is automatically giving our parameter, whatever we have defined. Here I can say system. This will give system related logs. If I want application, I can say application. So again, what benefit you get? You will decide what type of output you want, and it is going to give. Okay, that's the benefit. Now we have added a parameter in our function. Okay, this is first we created a simple function. Now we know how to add a parameter to our function. So I'll give this version also in the chat. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to do something extra. Okay, let's say, let's try to add maybe a loop here. Okay, if condition. Okay, we'll try to add an if condition. What we will do is, first we are getting the parameter. Okay, and instead of having this variable, calling this variable, though this is a better option, but I just want to show you how you could add a if condition in PowerShell. So I'll say if log name is equal to system, then run this block. I'll say something like this. Okay, let me just close this one. Similarly, I can have another block. Let's say if log name is application, then go and run this block. Let me change this command here so that you are hard coding this value already. I'm showing you this example because you will know how the if condition also work. Okay, here I'll say else if this. Okay, and then I'll have my else condition, which would say, or let's just keep it till this. Okay, to keep it simple. So what will happen is, let's run this. Okay, I'm going to say get hyphen my logs. Let's see this tab completion. Okay, it's not working. It's taking time. Okay, what I will do, I'll just type system. So now what I can do is I can change this. Okay, I can say if a user types sys. Okay, this will automatically go to this block. But wait, it didn't actually go to that block. Let's try it again. Okay, I didn't save it, right? Let me run this again. I made changes, so I haven't saved it. Let's say sys. Okay, you can see, right? You could customize the parameters. Let's say every time I don't want to write system, which is a lengthy word, you can say, you can have your own parameter set, so that you can do something like this if else condition and do your code like this also. Okay, again, this is another scenario which you could make use of it using a function. Okay, this is another example which I wanted to show. Now, moving on, let's say right now, if I call this, right, it's going to give me an error, or it's not doing anything, right, in this case. So let's say I want to have a mandatory parameter. Okay, like what we saw in other help systems and all, right? Let's see how you could make this as a mandatory one. What I will do is, there is a portion called parameter, or let me go to VS Code. I'll show you how you can develop a code here. Function 01.ps1. Okay, let's take this here. You see what benefit you will get with VS Code. Okay, I'll do, let's say I'm going to say, it gives you this auto completion thing. Okay, which I mean, as a beginner, you would not be, I mean, familiar with this, but once you are more comfortable with the language, right, you could start using VS Code. Okay, so now I'll say parameter, and for now I'll remove all other things which is not needed for our use case, and I'll remove this. I'll say this, and this also, here you can say something called mandatory. Okay, now what will happen is, since you have told mandatory, you don't have to define it as an empty string. Okay, now I'll say my logs v1, something like this. I'll say, for example, let's take this. Okay, I'll go back to my ISC and we'll run it. Now I'm going to call my function get hyphen logs. Let's see for the tab completion. Logs v1. This time if I hit enter, okay, could not find the custom attribute parameter name. Wait, I did something wrong. Okay, I called wrong. I gave a wrong option actually. Okay, it should be parameter. It's not parameter name. Again, there are whole bunch of different things. Now you see, right? I made that correction. So now it's not throwing an error, rather it's showing an option. So where I can enter my parameter. So without typing my parameter, my function will not work. So this is how you can set a mandatory parameter. Okay, let me give you this code as well. Again, I'll give you the sample code with the Git repo as well, but for time being, I'm just putting it in the chat as well. Okay, so we will now see. This is on the functions part. Okay, in a while, I'll show you how. So far, you would have seen whatever I executed, I have to execute, and then only I can call this function, right? So if I want to do something like this, if I'm opening a new PowerShell window, I cannot run the same function in my new commandlet window and it will not work. So PowerShell doesn't know what you're typing. Okay, it's telling whatever you have typed is not a recognized commandlet. I don't know what it is. So we'll see how that can be addressed. Okay, that is something will is something called as module. Okay, I'll before touching on the module, I'll quickly show you how you could do a error handling in PowerShell. Okay, for example, if I do something like this, get hyphen service, and I give some name XYZ, it is throwing a error, right? But we don't want this message to be printed. Instead, we want a custom message to be printed in the console. So what we will do is, let's say $a, I'm giving for now, let's say this is the service name which will be passing. We'll use get service only so that the example will be simple. So try, we have something called try catch. Okay, try, it will do something. Okay, I'll say do something, and then there is a catch block. Here again, you will say something like do something. So what will happen is, first it will try to do some operation. If that is going into an error, then it will go to the catch block. Okay, this is a basic syntax for the try catch block. Let me close this. Now we'll see like how we are going to make use of that variable. Okay, what I can do is I'll say try, and we'll do get hyphen service hyphen name. I'll say $a. Okay, if that is failing, go to catch block and write message, write host, and say please enter a valid service. And I can say foreground color red so that I want this to be customized. Right now, we gave a valid service. Now let's say I'm changing this. Let's run this. Okay, ideally it should have entered the catch block, but it is still okay. One more thing we have to do is there is something called error action. Okay, if there is an error, okay, let's see. I'll show you here. We have something called error action. So by default, if there is an error, it is going to continue. Okay, when you are introducing try catch block, you have to say for error, if you want to go to a catch block, you have to explicitly stop it. Okay, that's what we have done it here. Now you see it didn't print as a message, but it is printing a message whatever we have given. Okay, this is how you can use a try catch block. Again, you can also I'll show you an example for write warning. The service name entered is $a is okay. I'll just say service name entered is, I'll just say $a. Now let's run this. Okay, this is how your logging plays a crucial role. Let's say you're printing an error and also you want to print a message saying the service name entered is VSS. Okay, this is how the warning message looks like. Now, what I will also show you is I will also show you write hyphen verbose. Okay, the service name is, I'll just pick the same one, okay, just to keep it simple. But when I call it as a function, you will see what is the difference it makes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this whole thing inside a function. Okay, get my service v2. I'll name something like this, and I'm putting the whole thing inside a variable. So one more thing, what we have to do is for us, okay, what I will do is let me go here. I'll quickly talk about, we have something called common variables. Okay, let me go back to the syntax. You see this common parameters, right? So whatever parameters you see here with hyphen or like normal parameters, but apart from that, most of the commandlets will have something called common parameters, which is something like, if I do get hyphen service, let's hit that name, computer name, dependent service, all these are normal. Okay, the moment you start seeing this verbose, debug, error action, warning, information, all these are common parameters. Now I will also show you how you could add that to our function. Okay, so what we can do is we have something called commandlet, or I'll go to VS Code just to get that name so that I type it correctly. Okay, this is the attribute I was talking about. Okay, commandlet binding, and now let's take the same thing here. I'll put it. Now I'm going to execute it. Now this is a function. Okay, now you see I'll put this as function here. If I hit tab, okay, let's see, let's wait for this intelligence to pick, and you should start seeing. Let me type verbose. Let's see if this works. Okay. Wait, it's not writing the verbose message, right? 1 minute. Okay, it's not taking this commandlet binding. Let me see if I'm missing something. This is correct. For example, let me just, let's take this example. No, I want to show you how the verbose message looks like. Let me, but I mean the whole idea of showing this is try catch, but let me also show you the other part, the verbose thing. Okay, let's try to add it on top of this params, and I'll call this as v2 just to differentiate, and let's execute this. I think we don't have a verbose message, right? Okay, what I will do is write verbose. I'll just say user entered value is, and let's type this one, whatever parameter we are taking, right? Let's enter here. Similarly, we'll also have a verbose message here. Now let's run this, and let us call this, just paste it. Okay, now see, right, if I do hyphen, this is what I wanted to show you. For example, I'll say log name as sys. Okay, I'll show you a verbose message. So this is how your verbose message will be printed. Okay, so if you want, so by default, if I'm running it just with the log name, I will not see this details. Let's say if you want to debug something, that's when you will use this verbose message. By adding this commandlet binding, this will add all those options to you. I will also give this code here. Okay, you can just, I don't know if this is coming correct. No, I think this is not the complete message. Okay, leave it. I'll anyways share these commands in a separate repo. maybe this I will share. This is a small code. I'll just put it here. Let's see if this okay. This is coming correctly, right? Now we'll take this example only. Okay. If you want to convert this to a module, let's say I want to run the same commandlet from here. Okay. By default, all the PowerShell files will have an extension of .ps1. Okay. Now, if you want to convert it as a module, there is a extension called .psm1. For example, okay, I'll pick this one and I'll say my module. I'll just name it my PS module, okay, and I'll name the extension as .psm1. So these are the different extensions. For now, let's not worry about those things. .ps1 is for PowerShell. .psm1 is for a module. So what will happen is you will write your own functions. Okay, let me add this also. Okay, so you can put all of these things in a single file. You can put all your functions in one file, and you're going to store that. Okay, and to store it, I'm going to use a different folder, and I will say my ps function, or I'll say my ps module dot psm1. That's the extension. I'll copy this path because we'll go here, and I'm saving it. Now what I will do is, this is my function. We have something called modules, okay, which is like, you can think of a package, okay, which will hold a bunch of commandlets and functions. If you want to check what modules are loaded in your machine, get-module is the commandlet, and you could add parameter called list available to list all the modules. These are the modules at present which is loaded, but if I want to know what all other modules which I have loaded in my machine, I'll do something like this: list available. Since I have multiple modules, it is taking some time, but in the interest of time, what I will do is, we have something called import module. Okay, I can also import a module. So I have stored something on this path. So psm1 is my module. Now I have imported this module, which means I can run those custom functions in my screen. Okay, it's looking for parameter, and I'll say system. So you see, right now I've stored it as a module, kept it in a file. We have done import module and loaded that module in this session, and I'm able to fetch this data. Similarly, let's also call this -mylogs v2, right? What I will do is get-mylogs v2, and I'll say log name sys. You see, now we are able to call those functions. But still, for this, you are manually loading that module file, right? We could avoid that as well. For that, you have to understand there is something called ps module path. Okay, these are the different module paths we have. For now, what I'm going to do is, like, again, if I split this, right? Let me do one thing. I'm going to split this based on, okay, so these are the different paths. Let's see if this got loaded. Okay, this is the get-module commandlet which I ran. So for example, in my machine, right, I have installed multiple modules. One is for Google Cloud, other one is for AWS, other AZ modules are for Azure. So like that, I have multiple modules installed on my machine. Okay, and I also have SQL PS, which is for SQL Server. Now what we are going to do is, let's pick this path, okay, which is common for Windows. I'm going to go to this path, and where is our module path? So it is C workshop PowerShell. What I will do is, let me go to that path. Whatever is your module name, okay, I will just copy the module name, the file name, whatever you have created, and I have to create a folder with same name here. Okay, my PS module is the folder I am creating in this path where my actual modules are loaded. If you see, all these are my modules files. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this file and place it. Now this is placed. If I open a new PowerShell module, I should have my function which we just wrote in all of my PowerShell session without for me doing an import module. Okay, that is how you can write your own module function and create your own modules and load it. So this is on the modules part. I know we are running out of time. I'll just take another 5 more minutes to show you some more examples, and then we'll open for questions. Okay, I'll just take 5 more minutes. Hmm, I've shown you. So the actual content is done, but I want to show you some tools, how real-time use cases. I think last time you guys were interested, right? So this is a simple function, okay, using which you could do a ping, okay. So what this function does is, now you know how a function works, right? So these are the two parameters which it is taking. So what I will do, I will take this whole function to my this thing ISE. I'm just running this. So this is a simple function which will do a ping, and it's going to give a output for us. Okay. So I'll pick this same examples. I think I have this already written so that we'll save some time. Let's try to do this. I'll quickly show you what I have in my file. So these are the different sites which I'm pinging. Okay, localhost, google.com, and this is something random I have. Okay, now let's run this, and you see, right? If you look at this function, see, this is the write host message which you see here. Right now, let's try to open this file, copy, and you see, now we have built a simple ping report for a list of sites which was there in a file called host. Okay, this is one example. Like this, let's say you want to check the accessibility of some set of sites from a given server, you could use this simple PowerShell script. So what we are doing, we are taking these two things as a input parameter, the input file and the report file. So instead of input file, you could also have it as a runtime values as well. Okay, by using read host. Then we are also printing a message. Let's say I give something incorrect value. Okay, let's say my file name, I have given something wrong. So it is also giving me this error. Okay, input file not found. It will also write this error. If this path is not valid, it's also going to throw an error. And then I'm printing a message. This is the message which you saw in the file. And then we are using the for each loop for each host, whatever is the value which is there in that file, it is doing a ping. Okay, using PowerShell equivalent as test connection, and this is the value which it gets, and it is just a loop which you saw, right? For each and if loop I'm using, and then we are writing a write host message saying where my report is stored. This is one simple example. Now I'll show you other example also, which is, let's say I want to manage my Azure VMs. Okay, for example, this function I've written to manage Azure VMs, and it's going to, now if you look at this code, right, we have used most of the things which you have seen. Try catch is to have the try catch error handling. You will see the catch block here saying I'm writing the error message, whatever is being captured. I'm not having a custom message. And then if I quickly go through this code, I'm also using a switch based on what action. Action is another parameter. If I'm saying list VM, get status, start, stop, I can do. So let me do one thing. I don't know which one I have it, but let's try. I'm going to take that function as a whole. Let me just put it. Okay, what I will do is, let me see if I have any sample commands which is already there. So this is my function, and then I have to give my, or let me copy this whole. What I will do is, I'll say I know there is a resource group called CICD. Let's see if this works, because I don't know if I have already authenticated to my Azure portal, but let's see. Okay, it is still working. Okay, I'll show you. This is the Azure portal. Okay, if I go to virtual machines, these are the two VMs I have. Okay, and just to show you the status of these two VM, this is in stop state. You see it is stopped and deallocated, and this is also in stop. Now what I'm doing with this function, I'm not going to the portal also. I'm saying list action, so it is giving me the list. So what I can do is I can also do something called get status. Okay, wait, let me. Okay, if you read this message, right, VM name is required to get the status. So what I will do, I will also say, I'll give my VM name. Maybe I'll say Azure VM. Azure VM. Okay, you see, right, it is saying my VM status is deallocated. Now if I want to start, right, I'll change this. I'll say start. So it will print this message, and it's going to go and talk to my Azure resource, and it's going to start that VM. So like this, you can build your own function. This is one example where you could avoid going to a portal to manage your things. From the command line itself, using PowerShell, we have written our own custom function using which you are managing your Azure resources. Similarly, I have one more function which I have written for a multi-cloud. Okay, so let this finish. I'll show the other one as well, or I'll terminate. Let's see if I can switch to another window. I'll quickly show this one as well. Let me. Okay, wait. Screen. I'll paste the. I'm just giving the whole thing. Okay. So what I'll do. Let's see if this works, because again I don't know like if I have already authenticated it, but let's see. I've just pasted it so that I am creating a function. I haven't created it as a module. So if you see now, it's giving me it's like an interactive function. Okay, I'm going to pick. I want to look for the status of VMs in Azure. I've given one. Now you see it's asking for another parameter. It's asking me to enter the resource group. I'm saying CICD. Let us see if this works. Okay, you see, right, now it is listing the VMs in my Azure. I have dynamically picked the value as 1, and I'm also printing a message. If I'm typing 1, it's going to go for Azure, 2 is for AWS, 3 is for GCP. Now I can do the similar thing. Let's say if I give 2 and I say US East 1, it's going to talk to AWS. It's asking me for the status of VMs in Azure. I will say portal. I have 4 VMs. Okay, EC2 instances. Let's see if this is able to give that data or not. Ideally, it should, but if I have done for these things to work right, all the CLIs should be configured correctly. For example, for Azure, you do something called AZ Connect. For AWS, you will have the AWS CLI, and you will do something called AWS configure, right? And similarly for GCP, there is something called G Cloud. So you see, right, it gave me all the VM and its status. Similarly, if I do for GCP also, I think there also I had some resources, but let me check the project ID real quick, and I'll take this. I'm giving my project. So in Azure, you have resource group. In AWS, I've kept this function. It will take the region as an input. For GCP, I'm giving a project ID. In GCP, everything is like classified with project ID, and that's how you do it. Now let's see. Okay, so here there is a VM which is in terminated state. In GCP, terminated is equivalent to stop. Okay, so these are some real-time use cases. So using this function, right, I can manage my VMs without going to Cloud Console. And that's all I had. And now we are open for questions. I know I took extra time, but I hope you all liked it. So open for questions. I think I saw there was a question which I told I'll take it at the end. Let me go back. So, okay, those process are running on your computer or somewhere else. Okay. So to answer the first question, right, whether those processes are running on my system or somewhere else, whatever I do here, it is on my machine. Okay. If I do get hyphen process, this is if I just run this command, it is local to my machine. Okay. If I do something like this hyphen computer and I give some server name, okay, let's say server 1 for example, then what will happen is it will try to talk to server 1. In this case I don't have a valid server, but you see the error message, right? Could not connect to the remote server. Assume if you have connectivity, it will talk to the remote server and fetch the data. So that's your answer for the first question. Second one, for each is like selecting servers based on conditions to run or do something on that server. See, it all depends on what you want to do. Okay, I just showed you a simple logic, but what you are going to do is something. It completely depends on the use case. Let me see if I have that. So this is just one example. Okay, let's say you could also do something like this. Let's say you want to delete all the files in a given location. You could pick those files and do a for each and say there is a command called remove item, okay, which is equivalent to rm in Linux. So you could delete a file like that. So like this, the scenario is all like for what scenario you're writing, you're going to do it like that. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, you can just tell in comment or unmute and ask. We are open for questions now. I can extend if you have any questions. I mean, I just want to make sure you all learn something and you could try it out from your side and test it so that when you see things working from your machine, that gives a different satisfaction level, right? When something is working, you feel happy. No questions? Okay, if any questions also, like feel free to message me on LinkedIn. Okay, wait. I think it also instead of error message, we are assigning some other message. Is it like an exceptional handling case? No. Yes, the try. If you are asking about the try catch block, yeah, that's how you handle the error. So if you don't want to print the actual error message, if you want to print your own message, that's when you use that catch block. It's for exception handling. Okay. I will give you guys some more if at all. If you want to ask any questions, you could. If not, maybe we'll close it. Maybe I'll hand over to the host.
Yes, sir, am I audible? So can I end the session?
I'm sorry, Aarti, what was that?
Yeah, I'm audible. Can I end the
Yes,
session?
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if
So
no
I'm
questions, yes.
Aarti, the social media manager of AWS Cloud Club at St. Joseph Group of Institutions, and I'm here today for the vote of thanks. So as we wrap up, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all of you for attending episode 11 of the AWS Cloud Club St. Joseph Group of Institutions workshop. So a special thanks to Naveen Kumar for his time and valuable insight into PowerShell automation. We truly appreciate your expertise and the knowledge you shared with us today. And thank you for the organizing team and the PEP Cloud Computing and DevOps Center for making this event possible. And to all participants, your enthusiasm and engagement made this session a success. Thank you once again and have a great evening. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.